Hello, this is Greg from SharePoint Maven, and in this video I will explain to you and show you how you can create a client or vendor portal in SharePoint Online. So first of all, what do I mean by client or vendor portal? So look, as organizations migrate to SharePoint, they typically establish maybe various teams and Microsoft Teams application. Maybe they have some sort of intranet with the home site and various department sites and team sites. But the idea behind all these sites, they're meant primarily for internal consumption. All right, the idea behind these sites is that primarily those sites are meant, for employees themselves, and there might not be any external sharing even allowed on those types of sites. And what usually organizations do, what the best practice is to set up a kind of totally separate sites for external sharing. And this is just an example, I guess, of a client site that a client will be able to access and obviously externally and access whatever content there is on this particular site. So in this tutorial, I will pretty much demonstrate how to create this type of site and all the decisions that we need to address as we create the site and various settings we need to tweak in order to allow for external sharing to occur. The first step in the process, I think you pretty much have to define and understand what it is that you are going to share. What is the objective? What is the use case? Let me explain. From my experience, I encountered a total of three kind of use cases, three main scenarios when it comes to external sharing with the client. The first scenario is when essentially the whole site, the whole SharePoint site is shared with the client. So the idea is that each and every client, let's say you have, I don't know, 20, 50 clients, and you end up creating, 20 or 50 sites, various SharePoint sites. So each client gets their own site. And in this case, the whole site is shared externally with that particular client. This option is great when you have more than just a few, files and folders you need to share. Maybe you want essentially a client to navigate to a specific URL and be able to access documents, maybe some links, maybe some news and announcements, and other content you might have, maybe some tasks, whatever is going to be displayed on that site. But the idea behind the site is that essentially it's like a workspace that the client gets, and this is a great option if you are sharing more than just a few, files and folders. The second option is just to share a few files and folders. And this option is a bit simpler. Why? Because you don't need to spend time, kind of customizing the whole site. And essentially what ends up happening, you obviously still need to create a site. But what ends up happening is that you only share specific, files and folders externally. And in this case, the client or vendor, they would only get access to that particular file or folder that, has been shared with them. So with this particular option, you don't even need to create a site for each client. You can end up with one site for all the clients and maybe have a folder for each client and only share that externally. And because it's all based on what you shared on permissions, the recipient will only see their own folder. They will not see the folder of other clients. The third use case I encountered, and it actually happens quite often. So sometimes you don't really want to share a particular file or folder with a client. Sometimes you just maybe want to request some documents from the client. A use case would be, let's say, you're asking your client to send an invoice. So there is really no collaboration, right? It's not like, I mean, you can obviously share a folder, but we don't expect client to collaborate with us on the documents, add, delete, edit files on there. The idea is that it's more of a one-way street. So the idea is that we share a particular folder, and all that the external party, all they do is just upload documents to that particular folder. They really don't get to see anything else in that folder. They only pretty much, it's a one-way street. They just upload the requested documents, and that's about it. Um, the reason I'm covering this is because this is also a possibility. And I will actually, in this tutorial, I will explain all three options. I'll actually explain how to share the whole site. I'll explain how to share a particular file or folder, and I will also explain how to request those files into the specific folder. So we'll cover all three scenarios. But depending on the scenario you choose, right, there is just different level of, first of all, there are different use cases, but there is also just, varying level of, I guess, complexity involved. The next step in the process, we have to determine the site type we're going to create. You probably already know from watching my videos that in SharePoint, we have two main site types. All right, so when you create a new site, you pretty much have two main choices, a communication site and a team site. Let me briefly explain those to you. So a communication site is essentially this type of site. No left-hand side navigation, just widescreen. Again, no left-hand side navigation type of site. And the objective of those sites usually is one-way information sharing. And obviously, you can use it to collaborate as well. But with this option, you just pretty much, what you see is what you get. You just get a site that looks like this. And obviously, you can change the layout. The second option is a team site. And what is a team site? Let me navigate to that. So this is a team site. Now you see, first of all, quite a few differences. Unlike a communication site, a team site has left-hand side navigation. But the biggest difference is that when you create that team site, you get more than just a team site. You get what's called a Microsoft 365 group, which is essentially a membership group. And behind the scenes, you get a group calendar in Outlook. You get a distribution list in Outlook. You can connect a Microsoft team to it, and in my case, it is connected. You can also connect Plan and Planner. And so on. So with the team site, you get more than just a site, but this is the look and feel you get. Now, what I usually do for client and vendor portals, I create a third type of site. Now, I guess it all depends on the use case, but the third type of site that we're actually going to choose for this demonstration is this one. Now, this looks like that other team site I just showed you because it has left-hand side navigation and kind of this main area. But the big difference here is that there is no Microsoft 365 group attached. So there is absolutely no Microsoft 365 group or Teams or Planner. It's just pretty much a regular, basic SharePoint site with left-hand side navigation. And too often when we're building a client or vendor portal, the requirement is just to pretty much share documents, maybe some other type of content. So when you start adding teams and maybe you have a group calendar and and planners and other stuff. It's a little bit maybe too much for that particular use case. So for the purpose of this video, we'll assume we are just sharing pretty much a basic site with maybe some documents and some other content. So the third type of site that we have, in addition to the communication site, in addition to the team site connected to teams and groups is the team site without a group. And that's the one, once again, we're going to create. So to create this team site without a group, we need to navigate to SharePoint Admin Center. Only SharePoint admins can create this type of site. So I'm in Microsoft 365 Admin Center now, and we are going to navigate to the SharePoint Admin Center and click on Active Sites. This is, of course, a list of all the sites that you have in your tenant. So let's go ahead and click Create. And again, these are the two main site templates, a communication site and a team site. But this one over here, it actually tells you in fine print that it is connected to Microsoft 365 groups right here. So we don't want this. All right. We just want a regular, team site, but without a group. So you need to click Browse More Sites. And over here on the left, on the Choose a Template, you will see, I mean, there are actually other site types, but this is all classic. So let's not even go there. Essentially, the one you want to choose is a team site. But if you, yeah, well, the name is the same, but if you notice, it actually tells you over here, this option does not create a Microsoft 365 group. So that's what we want. And over here, we're going to give it a name. And we are going to, make ourselves the admins. All right, essentially, you can add other admins later, but, initially you have to add one. And obviously, we gave it a name. We can change it later, but the site address is derived from the site name. So, again, we can change that as well. Obviously, the URL address is available, so we don't need to worry about that. And click Next. And this is just, the standard settings. We click Create. And let's see what will happen. So the site got created right here. Let's click. And here it is. All right. Looks like that other site I showed you, previously. Now, because it's a team site, it does have left-hand side navigation, but again, you will notice there is no group attached. So that's exactly what we wanted. The next step would be to enable external sharing. And that's something we once again do from the admin center. So let me open my SharePoint admin center again. And I'm going to click on active sites. This is the site we just created. And over here, it even says team site no group. Um, Now, by default, the team sites, if this was a site connected to the group, believe it or not, external sharing would be allowed by default. But on this type of site, it's not. So it's something you have to do. It's an extra step, all right? You have to do it separately. So we click the checkbox, click sharing. Now, by default, obviously on this site, it's not allowed, but we can enable it. We can enable it. And you know what? For the option we're going to choose is new and existing guests. Why? This will allow us essentially, or the site owners to be precise, to invite anyone they want. All right, so with this option, they pretty much can invite anyone they want right from the site. Now, we're actually going to come back to this page when I'm going to show you another functionality of the ability to request files. For that, we need to enable this anyone setting, but let's not jump ahead. For now, we're going to enable this radio button and click Save. All right. By the way, if all of these options are grayed out, if you cannot choose any of these options, I'm going to click Save, but I'll explain to you what I wanted to explain. If all of these options are grayed out, that means that your external sharing is not allowed at the tenant level. So what you need to to fix it. So most likely you have disabled external sharing at the tenant level. So that would explain why you cannot tweak it at the site level. So if that's the case, just navigate to sharing under policies and make sure that the toggles, right, you do allow for essentially external sharing. If it's at the bottom of the screen, then it means it's not allowed. All right. So whatever changes you make here, just click Save. But in my case, we are all good. Now, the next step would be for you to customize the site. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is not the primary focus of this tutorial. And this would only be relevant. Remember how I provided you with 3 different options? This would only be relevant if you are sharing the whole site. If you are sharing maybe a file or folder, you really don't need to worry about the look and feel of the site because the client will never see it. But let me, you know what, let's just make it a little bit pretty. And again, I'll try to make it super quick. So I'm just going to do something like this. And maybe we want links here. Maybe we have the news on the left and documents in the middle. all right, just like that. So I just customized kind of the main page, and then let's also customize, the menu, maybe remove some stuff that's not relevant, just like that. And you can also tweak the theme and logo. Let's quickly do that. So you click on gear icon, change the look. We can tweak, maybe, let's make it this color. And then what else can we do? Let's try yeah, making it just like that. All right, so it's kind of stands out. And obviously, what I'm doing for some of my clients, for example, I upload a logo. All right, I upload a logo. For the client, so you can actually do that here. Once again, let's not worry about this, particular thing. Let's focus on external sharing. Now, before we share externally, I want to show you one other thing that is optional, but I don't think it hurts to implement. As you collaborate with maybe externally, right? Sometimes you just want to know if maybe client deleted the document or maybe added the document, right? You want to know what actually happened within the library. So what I also like to do is the following. I like to set up the alert, the rule on the library. So I'm going to be notified when, let's say, the client adds a document or maybe deletes it. So to do that, we need to go inside of the library. You can click See All or Documents on the left. And what we're going to do, we're going to set up a rule, an alert on this library, so I'm going to be notified. This is something that every user has to do themselves, all right? Unless maybe you decide to create some sort of automation and other people will be notified, but this is something you can easily implement yourself. So you can click on Automate drop-down rules, create a rule, and it gives you different scenarios. It's pretty self-explanatory. So when a new file is added or deleted, let's just do this. When a new file is added, I want to be notified. So you just fill in just like that. It's like a quick wizard here and very convenient. So from this point forward, I will be notified when every time the client uploads a document to the library. So again, depending on your use case, you might benefit from this option. So now let's go ahead and share some content externally. For this to occur, obviously I need the content. So I'm going to just upload some documents from my computer to this library, just like that. Now, remember there are three scenarios and I'm going to demonstrate them all. So the first scenario would be we're going to share a particular file or folder. Then we're going to share the entire site. And then finally, we're going to request some documents from the client. So I'll show you all three scenarios. So let's first start with scenario number one. We're just going to share a particular file or folder externally, not the entire site. So yeah, let's pick on this folder over here. And do we have anything inside? Yeah, we have a few files. So all you need to do is just right click share. And this is where you specify the email address of the recipient. Now the recipient, your clients, your vendors, they do not need to have a Microsoft 365 account. They don't need to have. They don't need to be familiar with Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive. If they, let's say, have a Gmail account, that will work for them as well. So that's exactly what I'm going to use, just like that. So this is just a test Gmail account that belongs to me. And when you type it in, yeah, it is smart enough to recognize that this user is outside of the organization, just like that. So just a warning, and then you can actually be very specific what the external party will or will not be allowed to do. Maybe you want to collaborate with them, or maybe just view and download, or maybe they can only view but not download. All right. In our case, let's pretend we need to collaborate. Right. We want the client to upload some documents and edit and so on. And this is where you specify your email, your message to them and click send. So if you have shared internally, right, within your organization, the process is pretty much the same. The only difference here, you pretty much set up, you specify the external user's email address. Let's see the experience for the external party. So in this browser, I'm logged in as this Gmail user, and the vendor, the client, they received the email just like that. So they know it came from you, and they just follow the prompts. This is the personal email message, that we typed in, and they just follow the prompts. So the first thing that they will get, they will need to verify their identity, their email address, and it just, Microsoft wants to make sure that this email was sent to human, right? And this was not an accident. So yeah, they just type their email in and click next. And what ends up happening, remember, external users, they don't have any Microsoft 365 account. Maybe they do, but in our case, they don't. And essentially, I guess we don't need this at the moment. And essentially, what ends up happening, because they don't have any accounts, they don't have any passwords, they somehow need to authenticate in. And they actually, after they type in their email address, Microsoft sends them a temporary passcode that they have to type in. So let's go back to our email. Here we go. The email arrived. So we're going to copy that code, 8-digit code, and type it in. And if they don't check the box, then they will have to go through this verification every single time, essentially, right? They will need to get a code and type it in. This will keep them signed in, so they can check that box, and that's pretty much it. So that's it. The vendor, the client, they are now able to access the folder we shared with them. Now, remember, I had other stuff on my site. I had essentially other, remember, web parts like news and links and so on. The vendor, they don't get to see. The client, they never get to see any of that. And remember how I had additional folders within the library? Once again, they don't get to see any of that. They only get to see the folder and everything inside that we shared. And because we gave the client the ability to add, edit, delete, that's exactly what the client essentially can do, right? They can upload documents, they can modify the documents, and actually, let me show you really quick. We are going to make a change here. All right. So I'm going to type something into this document, and of course it's auto saved. So I'm pretty much displaying to you what will happen when the client modifies the documents. Look at this. It will register that Gmail address, all right, and the modified by. So you will always kind of know what's happening, right? And if you set up alerts, you will be notified if they added or deleted a document. So pretty powerful. And this is super secure. If you just share the folder, remember we just shared this invoices folder. That's the only thing they see. Even if they, let's say they click on this, logo, right, or the name of the site, they will get access denied. So they don't have access to the whole site, to the site itself. They will get access denied. So, they will only get to see what you shared with them. Now, the second scenario I'm about to show you is when we want to invite the external user to the entire site. Again, this is for use cases when you need to share more than just a few files and folders. Maybe you have some news and announcements and links and maybe some tasks and videos, images, and so on. So essentially, we're sharing the entire site. So in this case, what you need to do, you need to click on Site Access or gear icon site permissions are really the same thing. And we are going to share the entire site. So you just click Share Site, and you need to type in the email address of the external user. So I'm going to type in a little bit different email this time, and I will explain to you why in a second. So you just type it in, And once again, a Gmail address, and we want this user maybe to be able to edit. All right, they can edit everything on the site, and you can also provide a brief description, project site or something. All right, just like that, and click add. All right, so once again, pretty straightforward process, and what will end up happening. So an email obviously has been sent to the user, but the user is immediately added to to the members group in this particular case. Once again, it's just a choice I made. I could also obviously invite the user to the visitor group. But let's now see the experience for the for the external user once they receive an email and accept the invitation. So in this browser, I'm logged in as this user we send the invitation to, and they also receive an email. A little bit different email, but kind of the same idea. All right, so they receive an invitation, and once again, they just follow the prompt. So they just click on the site. Once they click on the site, they have it's kind of misleading. It asks them to sign in, but remember they don't have any passwords. So all they have to do here is type in their email address again. Essentially, the email address we sent the invitation to, just like that. Click next. And what ends up happening once again, it walks through this temporary code. So Microsoft sends another email to this email address with a temporary code that the user will need to type in. So they just need to request it, send code. And now let's go ahead and check the email for the code. So here we go. Looks like the email arrived with a temporary code, and we can copy it and paste it and click sign in. And again, the user is prompted, for this stay signed in screen. Let's not worry about it for now. We can say yes or no. It doesn't really matter. And what ends up happening, so if this is the kind of the first invitation you ever sent to this email address, they essentially just have to accept some legal statements, I guess, right? Terms and conditions. So just accept. And that's pretty much it. As soon as they accept the terms and conditions, the recipient will be able to access the site. And remember, in our case, I gave the user the ability to add, edit, delete anything on the site. So essentially, first of all, they get to see more than just documents, right? They see the news and announcements and links. They can obviously, they see the entire library. They can add, edit, delete documents. They can even, edit the pages, all right? Maybe that's not something you want them to do, but because the edit level at the site level allows for that, they can even edit the page. But most importantly, they have access to the entire site. And again, for use cases when you have more than just documents to share, some other exciting stuff for them to see on the site, maybe with their name and logo, this is definitely an option to choose. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you and explain to you what actually happens behind the scenes when you invite the user to the entire site. So I'm back in Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and if I click on guest users, right, so active users, these are my kind of employees, and guest users, I guess, combined, but I just want to see the, guest users. And these are all the external users that were invited to my tenant. But look at this. So remember that Gmail address that I just invited this user to the whole site. They end up in your directory when you share the entire site. Now remember previously when we shared the file, a file or folder, we shared it to a different user. They do not end up in this directory. So when you just share a particular file or folder from a site, they never end up in your directory. They only end up in your directory when you invite them to the entire site. And this is where you can manage them, and you can actually manage more about them in Microsoft Entra ID, right? Formerly, I guess, Azure AD. But yeah, even in case if you maybe want to delete an external user you invited, this is where you do it. Now, the third option I want to demonstrate to you, the third scenario that I mentioned previously. So far, I showed you how to share a particular file or folder and share the entire site. In some cases, there is a need to maybe request some files from a vendor, for example. All right. A use case could be, look, a vendor needs to submit maybe invoices every Friday or something like that. And we, again, we're not collaborating here. We just want them to upload the invoice every Friday. Again, no collaboration. We don't need the entire site, nothing. So in this particular case, there is actually a nice capability. What we can do is we can request the documents into the specific folder. Now, by default, it's not going to work. By default, you're not going to see there is a request option in here. Why? Because there is a setting we need to tweak in the admin center. So let's navigate back to the SharePoint admin center. And essentially what we need to do is enable anonymous sharing on that particular site. So I'm going to navigate back to our site. Remember when we enable external sharing, and I promise that we will come back here. Well, here we are. So the highest, I guess, privilege a site can get in terms of external sharing is this anyone option. And essentially when you choose it, it doesn't mean that the users will be able to access the entire site anonymously. But you will be able to share files and folders anonymously. And what that means is that you will never know who was essentially accessing your files and folders, right? Because it's anonymous. So sometimes, right, I mean, by default, if you notice, this option is not even kind of on. You have to manually toggle the switch and select anyone. But in order to be able to request files, you need to choose this highest option. And again, um, you know, uh, don't worry, it's not like your site will all of a sudden be available, to everyone and without sign-in. No, that's not the case. It's only when you share files and folders, just like it says. So what you need to do, you need to enable anyone in here and click Save. And this usually takes a few minutes, so it's not something you're going to see right away. But then we need to navigate back to our site. So I'm back on the site, and after a few minutes, this option appeared. And here is how it works. So let's just say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a folder, weekly invoices. All right, I want essentially my vendor to upload invoices in here. So here's what you need to do. You first select the folder you want to upload things to and click three dots, request files. And this is where you specify what it is that you want them to upload in here, brief description, invoices, all right? And click next. And we are pretty much all set. Remember, we enabled this anyone link. So this link, I can just copy it and it will work for everyone. All right. I can actually send it, maybe if I type in the email address in here, I can send it to them, but I really don't need to worry about it. So I'm just going to copy a link. And in this browser, I'm going to paste it. Remember, I'm not logged in here as any user, any Gmail user, nothing. This was an anonymous link. And essentially, yeah, it just says, hey, a member of this site is requesting files for this was our description invoices. And then we just upload the files. So we click select files. And let's pretend, essentially these are the three invoices I'm uploading, just like that. Here they are. And this is where I have to specify the name of the user who is uploading those documents, and you will actually see why it's important in a second. So I'm going to type in first and last name. Remember, this is anonymous, right? So there is no email associated. So this is the only kind of piece of information that will be available related to those invoices, and click upload. And what ends up happening, the files are uploaded to that folder, and that's pretty much it. All right. So the recipient never gets to see the file or folder, shared, or the site or the link or anything like that. It's pretty much a one-way street. They just upload their files and they're done. So now let's see what happened on our site. I'm back logged in as myself on the site. Let's click inside of this weekly invoices. Look at this. Here they are. So 3 files uploaded. Obviously, because it's anonymous, it does say guest contributor. But look at this. Remember the first and last name? This is where it's used. The files are appended with essentially the first and last name. Because you might, right, deal with hundreds of vendors, and each of them will be uploading their files. At least it gives you a bit of an indication who it came from. So a pretty neat feature. So that's all I really wanted to show you in this particular video. Hopefully you learned something new. Once again, we have this 3 great options: share the entire site, share a particular file or folder, or the ability to request files. So each one obviously has its pros and cons, but depending on the use case, you can adapt SharePoint to your specific needs. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you learned something new. As always, happy to see you on my blog, sharepointmaven.com, as well as my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.